Muy buenos días, muy buenas tardes. Soy Mario Trías, editor de la revista enAlimentos y la revista En Pharma. El día de hoy tendremos una conversación con Jim Taschetta, director de la oficina de operaciones de la compañía Mista en San Francisco. Jim, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm doing very well, thank you, Mario. Great to see you as well.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. Voy a hacer esta conversación en inglés para que Jim se sienta más cómodo y trataremos de ver qué opciones tenemos para el mercado de nuestros países latinos. Jim, let me ask you a couple of questions first. Who is Mista and who is Jim Taschetta?
So, Mista is an organization that is charged with trying to advance the food system. And we do this by bringing in members from across the global food system who are interested in not only creating competitive advantage, but also improving our food system for the future. We're located in San Francisco, but we are a global innovation platform, and our members come from all parts of the world. I am the chief operating officer here. I spent the last 40 years in the food system. I spent about half of my career with large corporations like Procter Gamble and Coca-Cola and Visa. And I spent the other half at startups, helping to launch and scale them. So I have a deep appreciation for how challenging the food system is and how important it is for us to all work together.
You speak about that the challenge of the food systems. Have you seen this challenge increase in these years of your career?
I do believe that the food system is becoming more complex and has far more challenges now. The biggest challenge is we have a growing population, and there's a need for more protein, and the current systems are not sufficient to meet that challenge. By the year 2050, we'll be at 10 billion people. And the answer is not to add more cows to the system and try to use the traditional systems. We have to find ways to feed the world in a way that is both sustainable for the planet and healthy for the individuals.
I think there is a very different situations here. Probably in the whole history of humanity, there was no necessity to work together with different cells of people working together to achieve a goal. And right now, what I have seen probably last part of human history, it's the necessity of building teams. This sounds familiar for you as Mista?
Yes, absolutely. I think you're hitting on exactly the right topic. To transform our food system, which is necessary if we're going to feed the planet, we need to find new ways of collaborating. We need to get the entire food system working together on common goals. Without that, it'll be really challenging for us to meet the new obstacles that are in front of us.
And this is, or looks like it's going to happen through all the cycle of life of the product, since the development to the packaging and probably far, far away more. I'm okay? I'm correct?
Yes, no, that is correct. You know, the food system is fairly complex in that it starts with the farmers on one end and ends up on a grocery store, and the amount of handling that takes place between the farmer and the grocery store shelf, if you will, is quite complex. And there are multiple players, all with different goals, that are involved in that. And so aligning the food system from farmer to shelf takes a new form of collaboration that will force us to work together in ways that we're not currently doing. And that is going to be the important unlock for us to actually be able to transform this food system so that we can feed the planet in a way that's sustainable and healthy.
Every time that I talk to people in the food systems, we're speaking about the necessity of developing the product more easy, easier and on time, and achieve the goals that are created for. These situations, Mista helps to the producers to have less time for develop a product, less time to scale up, and less time to reach the market?
Yes, that's absolutely right. The basic tenet of Mista is that we bring together all of the different players in the food system, and we get them to sit around the table and learn about new ways of working, new ways of cooperating and contributing, so that we can find solutions that do deliver cost-effective, nutritious, nutritious foods in a way that meets the taste preferences and needs of consumers. And the only way to do that is to break down the current barriers of how we work together today. And it's amazing when we do sessions at Mista. One of, I think, the most satisfying outcomes is that we will have senior leaders from a CPG company or an ingredient company turn to us and say, that was transformative. I've never sat down with my colleagues in company X and talked about solutions this way. We're typically working within the silos of our own companies and relying on our own resources to solve these problems. But when we sit down with multiple companies who are facing the same challenges, what we realize is we're not necessarily competing. We are able to work together and deliver on the goals of each of our individual companies in a way that utilizes that collaboration to come up with new solutions and new ways of working. And ultimately, when people sit down and recognize that, they do end up with faster, better, more cost-effective solutions for the marketplace. So it's really important that we all begin to open up our mindset to thinking about new ways of working together to not only solve the food challenges in front of us, but to actually make our individual companies more competitive. And that is the outcome that we see time and time again when we bring together our member companies.
Okay, we have a very complex situations in front of the food systems. That is the UPFS. The ultra-processed foods, as far as I know, there is no definition of it. It's just like some strange concept that everybody can think whatever they want in an ultra-processed food. I'm okay, or there is a definition somewhere that I just miss it?
Yeah, it's a great point, Mario. I think in fairness, the ultra-processed food classification, it's more that it's a misnomer, that it's probably the wrong term for us to be using. Right now, there is no formal definition for an ultra-processed food. What it does rely on is a classification system called NOVA, N-O-V-A, that was developed out of Brazil through a Brazilian professor back in 2009. And that classification system classified foods into 4 different groups, starting with unprocessed or minimally processed, then moving to specific culinary ingredients like salt and sugar. That would be group 2. And then group 3 is when you combine any of group 1 and group 2 together, you end up with group 3, which is called minimally processed. And then the last group is group 4, which is called ultra-processed foods. And group 4 is any food that has an additive or an ingredient that's not part of group 1 or 2. And so that group 4 is a massive classification that's very simplified in nature in terms of its the way of grouping foods together. And that is the problem right now with this term ultra-processed foods. It's a general classification that does not take into account the nutritional profile of the food. It simply looks at how it was made and what ingredients were added to that. And that is overly simplistic. So we have an issue as a food system if this term ultra-processed foods sticks and becomes the way people judge foods, because ultimately we need processed foods if we're going to be able to feed the planet. And there are tremendous advantages to processed foods, which I'm happy to talk about with you.
Yes, and there is a lack of words enough to see that there is no the same, even that because this classification of this professor, the group 4 is everything else that it's not in the first one, second one, and third one.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I think that, and the biggest deficiency with that system is that it does not take into account the nutritional profile of the food. So I think we can do a lot of harm to our consumers if we stick to a classification system that's that simplistic. We have an obligation as a food system to help inform and educate our consumers so that they can make better choices for themselves. We do not want to demonize an entire category, processed foods, simply because we haven't come up with a better system. And
because
and
there is no science on it. There is no science on it.
Yeah, the science is limited, and it's also controversial. And again, there's no doubt in my mind, Mario, that there are foods in our food system that are not good for you. That I will not debate. I think the debate is about what is the right way to educate and inform consumers, and it's not a system that simply looks at whether the food has been processed or not, because there are many processed foods that are actually nutritionally dense and better for consumers. And so you want to encourage the development of processed foods that are nutritionally robust, not demonize an entire category. And the reason for that, Mario, is without processed foods, we would have a lack of food safety. Our shelf life of many of our foods would not be long enough. The nutritional density of many of our foods is enhanced by processing. This obviously a convenience factor to processing foods, which makes sure that it shows up in people's shelves. And it creates accessibility. Without processed foods, you wouldn't be able to go into large metropolitan areas and feed the citizens there. Here in Los Angeles, there are 20 million people living in the Los Angeles basin. There'd be no way to feed those 20 million people if you didn't have processed foods. So we need to move away from a categorization system. And frankly, I would move away from the term ultra processed foods altogether. I don't think it does us any good as a food system to use that classification. What we want to do is have people begin to look at the nutritional content of the food that they have and make decisions that fit with their lifestyle and their body. And that is our obligation as a food system, is help consumers make better, more informed choices. So ultra-processed food actually fights that. The term ultra-processed food goes against that notion. So I'll pause there. That's a lot to absorb, but I feel very passionate about this because I want us to create a healthier planet. And I think processing of food is one way to actually get to that goal. And we do not want to tear down that capability in the food system, because there'll be no way to feed the planet if we demonize the notion of processed foods.
I also believe that when you process and you can be aware of your product and all the subproducts that you have, you can give an opportunity to the subproducts and normally find another use for them. So that makes better the business, but also less the waste of the plants.
Yes, no, that's right. I think there's a lot of efforts underway that fully utilize the products when we go through processing. And at Mista, we have a lot of companies that we work with that are using what we call the side streams, the product that's left over after they've done the processing, to actually grow new organisms that are healthy for us, whether that be mycelium or yeast derived products. They can feed off of those side streams, that extra product that's left over, and create new proteins, or that could actually become part of the food system yet again. So there's a lot of great work being done right now to be very efficient in how we process foods and use the leftover side streams. And that I
Let
think
me
is
ask you, sorry. Let me ask you something about the nutritional point of view. Why is important this different perspective and see the products by the nutritional situation of the product and not by the way that it was processed?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Our diets are driven by the need for specific nutrients, as we all know. We need proteins, for example, as one of the key building blocks in our body. We also know that we don't want high sodium levels or high fat levels, or saturated fat levels, I should say. So I think it's important that the consumers have the ability to understand what is in their foods. Because it's up to each of us as individuals to decide what we need to consume in any given day. So by having complete transparency about what's in our foods, I as a consumer can make better choices. And the reason that that's important is that I have very different needs than my daughter. My daughter's 26 years old. She's a climber. She's an outdoor enthusiast. She burns through a lot of protein in a given day. And so she's looking for a diet that's high in protein. And for her, she looks for foods that have protein fortification in them, because that's the only way she can meet her need for more protein without taking in more calories than she wants. Because that's the other piece that she's always looking about. She doesn't want to take in too many calories, but she wants to have protein-enriched food. I'm not looking for that much protein. I'm not as active. I don't have the same protein needs as her. So it's important for me to go after foods that are more balanced and have not necessarily high protein content. So by creating the transparency around our food system, we allow individuals to make choices that make sense for them. And again, ideally, we'd all be eating farm to table. We would go out into our gardens at the end of the day and we'd pick the foods we need and we eat them. That is the way the human body was designed. Unfortunately, that's not the way. Most of us cannot eat that way. Most of us do not have the access to the right foods in their backyard to be able to do that. So we need to have some level of processing to be able to put the foods on the shelf that I need for my individual diet. And by creating transparency around what's in those foods, I can make the right choices, the informed choices for me. That's ultimately what we need to be doing as a food system, is creating the transparency so people can make informed choices for themselves.
And words like micronutrients and fiber, it's something that probably my grandfather will not take care of it. But now that we know that it's very important for our kind of lifestyles today. Am I wrong or right?
No, I think that's an excellent point. There has been a tremendous advance in our understanding of the gut biome and the importance of feeding the gut, and things, fiber is one of the important components of that. And so I think what you raise is a great point, Mario. Your grandfather, my grandfather, probably never uttered the word fiber or micronutrients, yet they're critically important for them. So we can't overcomplicate this process. We can't ask every consumer to become a food scientist or a nutritionist and sit down and expect them to make choices every day. So we have to find a system that's open and transparent, but also simple enough that consumers can understand it and absorb it, so that I don't have to try to explain to my mother what micronutrients are and how much fiber she should have every day. We need to make it easy for consumers to make the right choices for themselves. And that's part of the challenge with these systems that we're trying to put in place is how do you provide guidance that will allow people to make informed choices without forcing them to have to study each package and get a food science degree.
And probably that is the necessity of companies like Mista, because there is no necessity to be everybody an expert in food. Probably situations like ideas that drive to some people to create Mista help people to understand and to have in the supermarket products that can help them in our way to feel better.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. One of the roles that Mista plays is to help inform and guide our members so that they are able to make the right choices about where they should be investing their time and money. We're constantly educating the food system about new sources of protein or the effects of the GLP-1 drug on food habits and how they should be thinking about that. So we help our companies look for disruptors, and we help our companies think about where they should be going with their technologies to stay ahead of the food system and actually and lead this food system. And that's critically important because what we need to be really doing is driving collaboration that allows companies to become more efficient in what they do and not have to reinvent and discover things on their own, but instead to share in the collective wisdom about where we should be taking the food system in general, and then apply their specific capabilities to solving that problem. So there are many, many general points that we can help educate our members about that then they can take and bring to another level based on their capabilities and strengths. And that's our goal. We don't want each company to have to reinvent the learning and information out there, but instead, let's share it, make sure that they have open access to it, and then decide how they want to utilize it to drive their businesses forward.
And by the way, also you take care of the process because part of your partners are processing guys. So it's from the development all the process and to the packaging, it goes through all the way.
That is correct. So as you're aware, Mario, it's important that you have all the players in the food system sitting around the table if we're going to make change. So we do have players like Buehler, who's one of the largest food processing equipment manufacturers in the world, or SIG, which is a packaging manufacturer. They're part of the Mista group because their role in helping the CPG companies or the ingredient companies deliver solutions is critical. And they bring a set of knowledge that allows our companies to think forward around how they might apply some of the new technology into the processing side of this.
Mista, it's open to new collaborations that not compete with their own players, already players?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, Mista is made up of about 30 to 35 members at any given time that run from CPG companies to ingredient companies, retailers, and manufacturers, or equipment manufacturers. But we have at any given time 200 to 250 partners of Mista that sit around those members, which allows us to be far more collaborative. So we have many, many startups that are part of the organization that are not members, but that we keep in touch with. We have a lot of universities that we work with. We actually have a lot of CPG companies who are not yet members, but who we collaborate with and invite to our seminars and webinars, because our goal is to try to bring together this community and strengthen the ecosystem as much as we can. So in short, our ecosystem is made up of hundreds of companies, even though our membership might only be 30 to 35 companies. And again,
probably your experience as with and collaboration with startups give you a very good advantage on this.
Yes, I think there are, as you're aware, there are many startups out there, and part of our goal is to try to assess and curate those startups that we think have technologies that are important and can help move the system forward, and then enlighten our ecosystem about these capabilities. So we try to shorten the time between a startup coming up with an idea and a large corporation adopting that idea and bringing it to market. And that gap between the startup and the large corporation is a major challenge for the industry right now. It's hard for large companies to assess all of the startups that are out there and all the new technologies and incorporate them into what they're doing. And of course, it's hard for the startups to get their technologies noticed. So what we try to do is bridge the gap and find a curated, less formal way of bringing those two things together. How do we allow the large companies like Danone a view into the world of the startup technologies in a way that's safe, curated, and allows for faster adoption than the current system that's in place today. So it's another form of collaboration that that our members find to be incredibly useful.
Dear Jim, time is always a very important factor. So I know that you are busy. I would love to see how operates, and I know that you will probably have some kind of meeting in a few months. So we will love to keep these conversations open and see some examples of what you may do and how Mista is changing and developing for the good situations in the food and pharmaceutical and nutritional areas.
Terrific, Mara. Well, we certainly invite you and your readers to collaborate along with us. We very much believe in opening up the ecosystem as broadly as possible. So I look forward to more interactions with you, and certainly invite you to come out to the Mista Innovation Center at any time, and certainly around some of our special events, which I'll bring to your attention in the future.
Please share with us some way to communicate, because there is people with ideas that probably will want to contact you and to show you what they're doing and to bridge the gap, as you said.
Yeah, that's terrific. And if your readers want to visit our website, which is mistafood.com, there's a contact us form there that they can use to reach out to us, and we're always looking to hear about new technologies and new challenges, and to the degree that we can, we would love to invite people into the ecosystem. So I invite all of your readers to reach out to us via that form, and we'll absolutely respond.
Thank you for your time, Jim. See you next time, and I'm certainly very interesting in the ways that you will change the ecosystem of the food industry.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time, Mario. I appreciate it. Enjoyed speaking with you.
Nos vemos la próxima. Muchas gracias por su tiempo. Hasta luego.